Hello and welcome to the shop. I've talked about this concept of shop organization in past videos, and today I'm ready to start moving forward with organizing my tools. And my plan is, I'm going to start with my bandsaw. This is usually where I start when I'm making a pin. You've got to cut the blank before you can drill it and tube it and do all of the other various tasks. I want to turn this into a workstation. I'm going to start by going over the saw and looking for every tool that I need to work on the saw. For example, to tighten the cool blocks, I'm going to need an Allen wrench. If I don't have a spare, I'm going to purchase one specifically for this tool, and I'm going to assign it to this tool. Then, since I primarily work in pins, I'm going to go through the process of everything I need to do to cut and prepare a blank, and I'm going to make sure all of those tools are located with this bandsaw. Now, I'm not sure yet how I'm going to locate them on the saw. I don't know if I'll put a little box up here that things can stick in. I'll put a magnetic bar on here that they can cling to. I'm not sure just yet. Looking my bandsaw over, and that includes going inside the bandsaw, I found that there are three basic tools I'm going to need to work on this at any given time. They are an Allen wrench to be able to adjust the bearings. I've got a Phillips screw over here on the handle, as well as a Phillips screw on the guide that potentially could loosen up and need tightening. And I'm not sure if you can see it in the video, but on the door, these knobs, there is a nut on the back of them that potentially could come loose. Those three items will pretty much allow me to do just about anything I need to do for saw adjustment or basic saw maintenance. I grabbed a set of sockets and I was able to test the nut on the door as well as the nut on the side of the bandsaw, and both of them are 10 millimeters. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to order a 10 millimeter box wrench to keep with this bandsaw as opposed to a socket. A socket is two pieces. This could fall off, roll around the floor. It's just something else to keep up with versus a wrench I could just stick to the side of the saw on a magnet and it's always going to be there, very accessible. Testing the bearings, I found they are 5 millimeters, and luckily I have a whole drawer full of, a small organizer drawer full of Allen wrenches, so I had a 5 millimeter Allen wrench. It works perfect. And I have a #1 Phillips screwdriver, which is perfect for the handle as well as the miter gauge. I grabbed a blank that I'm preparing to turn into a pin, and you'll notice I've got body and cap written on there, and I've got a couple of straight lines. This is generally how I do a one-off blank. I'll take my tube, I'll measure one tube, put a mark, measure the second tube, put a mark, then I'll use my little square to draw a line all the way across the blank. I bring it over to the bandsaw and I'll freehand it. That's probably 90% of the time what I do. The other way that I cut blanks is using my blank cutting jig. And the way this works is you take your tube and put it in this jig and you tighten this stop block up somewhere along this rail so that you have a repeatable cut. I use a 7/16" wrench to tighten this nut down, and I have put that on my list to purchase one. But this is great for batching out blanks. If you're going to make 10 of the same cut, you set this up once and you can just boom, 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 knock them off. If you're doing a one-off, it's simpler to do this way. Now, a couple of things I want to note. I also have my miter gauge. The miter gauge is used for this particular jig, and I'm going to take a rare earth magnet, which I've brought one over, and I'm going to glue it right in the center of my miter gauge, right here on the handle. It won't interfere with anything, and that will allow me to stick the miter gauge to my saw. Now let me show you what I plan to do. I also have a few washers here that I'm going to glue to the end of my pencils so that they can be attached to the saw. I have figured out how I'm going to go about hanging this jig on the saw. You can see that it basically sets in front of the miter gauge and you push it through the blade, and you'll notice there's probably 4 inches of it that hang off of the saw on the far right. I'm going to go ahead and use some hot glue, and I'm going to glue 2 rare earth magnets to the end of my jig, and then I can basically set the jig right here and it'll stick perfectly to the side of the bandsaw. It'll always be within arm's reach. I can grab it, pull it off, set it right on my miter gauge, and I'm ready to start cutting blanks. I know that I need a 3-inch length of magnet to attach to the frame of my saw. However, taking a look at this, I thought initially I would cut it on the bandsaw, but that's a pretty hefty piece of steel. So I think what I'm going to do is grab a hacksaw, we'll square this up, and then we'll measure out 3 inches and cut a couple of pieces off of this magnet. Overall, I'm fairly happy with how this turned out. I've got my cutting jig and my miter gauge magneted to the lower section of the bandsaw. Up at the top section, I've got a magnet, and I've got my Phillips screwdriver and my 5mm Allen wrench up there. I will add the 10mm for working on the door. And then over on the other side, I've got several pencils, which you always need a pencil. I've got my little square, and I will add the 7/16 inch wrench that I use for adjusting the jig. I really hope you enjoyed this short little video. This is something I've been wanting to do for a very long time. All I have left to do is purchase a 10mm box wrench and a 7/16 inch box wrench, and I think it's gonna be great. I can't wait to let it go for a while and see how it works, see how it evolves. Because, for example, if I want to adjust my cutting jig, I need a 7/16 inch wrench. I keep that wrench all the way back in the back corner of the shop on my metal lathe, because that just so happens to be the wrench that I use to tighten the tailstock. So then I have to run back there and get it. This way there's no running. On the right hand side of the top of the bandsaw are all of the tools and the pencils, the square, everything I need for cutting blanks. On the left-hand side at the top of the bandsaw are all of the tools I need for working on the bandsaw. So this evening I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna hop online, purchase my 7/16, purchase my 10mm, I'll stick them to the proper magnet when they come in, and everything I need is within arm's reach. I don't even have to move. So I'm really excited about this. I'm gonna let this run for a while, see how it goes. If I like it, then I'm going to go to the next tool. I don't know if it'll be my disc sander. I don't know if it'll be my drill press. I think making each tool a workstation is really going to, it's going to make it more fun for me, because I'm not always running around looking for a tool. So we'll see how it works. And as always, I promise to let you guys know. I'd like to thank you for joining me in the shop tonight. I want you to know that you are always welcome in my shop. Come back and see me again real soon, and have a great evening.